Thanks for tuning into Heirs TV.
Too busy to pay attention. Let's go to Matthew 26. We'll start with Matthew 26. All right, so Matthew 26 and verse 41. It says, watch and pray that you enter not to temptation. Spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak. Key point there, underline it, circle it, highlight it. Watch and pray. Conjunction. Watch, not just pray, but watch and pray. Be attentive and pray. Let's look at a familiar scripture. James chapter 1. Matthew 26:41 was the first scripture. James chapter 1 verse 19. It says, wherefore, my beloved, let every man be swift to hear. Swift to hear. That's another attentive word. Swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. Actually, the progression is saying if you're swift to hear, swift to listen, you'll be slow to speak because you'll be too busy listening. And of course, that will assist you in being a whole lot less arguments or getting caught up in a lot of wrath, a lot of craziness. So the first scripture says watch and pray. So be attentive and pray. Again, it's very hard to be in any negative if your mind is focused on God. He'll keep them in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him. Being attentive is important, but the interesting thing is what the Lord has been showing me, and some of you will probably be aware of this, a lot of times we're too busy to pay attention. We're not really taking advantage of the things that are available for us. We were getting a mortgage, and when we were getting a mortgage, it was so interesting that I was reading through all the documentation. So the documentation is about this thick, all these papers. And, of course, they're all little words and they're this thick. And so as we're going through, I'm reading through because, I'm making sure everything's correct. And the person, the closer was like, you can read through all of it if you want to, but you don't get the house unless you sign it. So she was like, it doesn't make, it really doesn't make a difference that you're going through the trouble to read through all this. But I noticed that there's documentation that might not be as, as exhaustive as 100, 200 pages of information, but we're too busy to pay attention. So people will, at the end of their lease, they owe more than they really wanted to. At the end of maybe they're trying to get out of a certain place they want to stay, and they never really paid attention to the fine print. They were too busy to pay attention. Just little simple things like, so they draw you into, if you take this key and bring it, you'll win a free car. But it's so much other information that all you had to do is read it. But the interesting thing is life is set up. It's set up so knowing that you won't pay attention. It's set up like most of the sales and most of the things that draw you in are things that they draw you in with the big letters, but all the information that's important is in small letters. Mostly every commercial you look at, they have a sign out here in Brookshire that says free fireworks. So you would think that when you show up at where the arrow's pointing, you're gonna get some free fireworks. But actually, there's more information. There's more information than free fireworks. You have to buy a certain amount of fireworks, and then your fireworks are free. See, so you can't be too busy to pay attention. You realize sometimes we're too busy to absorb nutrition. We're just too busy. So we'll grab something, fast food and stuff like that, that's not best for us because, and fast food is what? It's set up because it's figuring you're too busy to cook or you're too busy to really pay attention to what you're getting. So you'll just take anything. We're too busy to listen, too busy to absorb nutrition. Actually, I recognize this. Sometimes we're too busy to watch the seeds we sow. Only time we notice the seeds we sow is when we get the harvest. And then we're mad at the harvest. So let's say somebody's treating us unfair. And we'll go, I can't believe I'm being treated unfair. I can't believe I'm being treated unfair. But if we really were paying attention, we've been treating people unfair. Or we'll look at a situation where no one's listening to us. But if we're really paying attention, you haven't been listening. See, so we're not even paying. So we're going, I can't believe this is happening. But if you were paying attention to the seeds you're sowing, you were walking circumspectly, you would realize you're reaping a harvest of the seeds you've sown. Right? So we can't be too busy to pay attention. Look at this, Luke 12. Let's go to Luke 12. We get so caught up because the adversary's job is try to confuse us. I was talking to someone out of town, and I was telling him, so I gave him a couple of stories. I'm not wishing this on anybody, but I had a young lady. She was coming for counseling, and she was really wanting her husband to come in for counseling. This was when I was in Ohio. And so the husband wouldn't come in, but he called a couple times. A couple times he called me. But it was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Everything was all good. Like he called, when I talked to him, it was like, we knew each other for the longest. There's a couple of situations like this, but this particular situation, finally the husband called. So when the husband called, it was amazing when he called because I was like, well, I wonder why he called. So I returned his call, and he says, well, I was doing a job. I was on the job, and when I was out on the job, I looked out across the street, and there was a parking lot, and there was my wife's vehicle, her car. And so he looked, he stopped everything he was doing because, when you're bothered, you go blind, so you don't care. So it was an apartment complex. He went to every apartment, ringing every doorbell. Oh, we're going to find where my wife's are. And so he finally got to the apartment she was at. She answered the door. You know why? Because it was her apartment. Well, the interesting thing is what happened was there was some things that behind the scenes she was planning because she basically got tired, with a relationship, but he was too busy to pay attention. So she didn't leave that day. She left way before that day. So so when I was talking to the gentleman today, I was telling him, he said, he was saying that basically his mate was going through a crisis, somewhat of a crisis. It seemed like she didn't feel like doing anything. I said, well, you have to realize, like, even when you first start out a relationship, all the new things is what keeps the relationship going. You went to Tahiti, new, never been there before. Went to Hawaii, never been there before. Went to Las Vegas, never been there before. Went to the restaurant you always wanted to go to the restaurant with somebody with because you've never been there before. So you do all these things, and they're nice because they're new. They're nice because they're what? Because they're new. But those things don't keep you. Those are, that's like vitamins. Vitamins have no weight without food, right? So those things are like vitamins. You can't live off of those things. So remember counseling a couple, and we was telling them that, start out with friendship because eventually going out to dinner gets old. Doesn't get old mean you won't go out to dinner because we all like to eat. But you know how you go out to dinner, and you guys are newlyweds, so you go out to dinner, and we're together, this candlelight, pick the right restaurant, and it's not too light, it's dark, it's a romantic evening, and I've been waiting to do this for a while. That's good, no problem, all right? But you can't live off of that. That's in addition to. You live off of sustaining your friendship. And so what I was telling the person is, I said, you got to keep injecting vision into the relationship because it has to be something to look forward to. It always has to be something to look forward to. So I said, don't get so caught up because I think this particular person, it was something that their mate wanted to do, so they're doing it, so they're having a good time. I said, don't rest with that. It ain't over just because you're doing something that they finally wanted to do. I said, participate and keep looking ahead. Don't jump in and go, well, finally, I can get him off my back or get her off my back because we're doing what they wanted to do. Oh, no, it ain't over. You always have to be looking forward. You always have to have vision. You can't be too busy to pay attention. And the adversary's job to get us to caught up. The one person I was talking to, things got funky, so they bought a house. So then the husband had to pay for the house, so he had to work, 60, 70 hours a week to pay for the house. So now he's not home. So he's not home, so she's missing him at home. And after a while, she gets tired of the same thing over and over and over because he can't be home because now he's trying to pay for the house because he thought the house was going to quench the relationship. Well, the house doesn't make a relationship. Relationship makes the house. Now, he got so busy, he didn't realize the relationship was falling apart. The kids was falling apart. Too busy to pay attention. That's why you can't get so caught up in the cares of the world, deceitfulness, riches, and lust of other things, because it'll choke God's vision and purpose, his word for your life, right? All right, so if we go here to, I had another scripture for you. Hebrews 2. Let's go to Hebrews 2. Hebrews 2, chapter 1. It says, therefore we ought to give more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip. We should give earnest heed to the things that God is trying to reveal to us, lest any time we should let them slip. So God is not giving us information for us to just take it for granted. For example, the guy started off the year with a time to reap. And if you're giving earnest heed to what God said, that there is a time to reap, well, and if you're mindful of that through the course of we're in July, right? Yeah, we're in July now. You would see, you would recognize how God has been trying to prepare you for reaping or infuse reaping in your life. Like, especially when we get to the end of the year and we start talking about the vision for next year and we share some of the things that happened this year, you see that there's been a lot of reaping. I know we've experienced reaping beyond measure, and God is not finished, but he's actually been equipping people. People have been crossing over into things that they had forgot about or they had given up on. So we'll get into that later. All right, so take earnest heed, lest the things you've heard slip. So again, you want to be attentive enough and locked in enough where you stay, as I was telling my grandson yesterday, you stay on that path. We were talking about staying on that path, not letting anything pull you off of the path that you're supposed to go to. Don't be too busy. If you're too busy to pay attention, you won't watch how you're training your kids. Scripture says, train the child in the way he should go. When they're old, they will not depart from it. Well, you're training children directly and indirectly. So there's ways you're training your kid. They're picking up on things that you don't think that they're picking up on because you think they're not paying attention. But the truth is they are. They absorb everything you do. You could be walking through a store and then your kid will say, Superman for $3.99. You're like, what are you talking about? And they had announced Superman for $3.99. But you were too busy to pay attention, but they I heard them say $3.99. Let's go get the Superman for $3.99. Right? They're on it. But when you may think when you're funky or when you're selfish or when you're not operating in integrity, the kids aren't picking those things up, but they're picking everything you do up. You're constantly communicating to them what you want them to do, but they're actually living out what you are doing. They're a reflection of what you're doing, not what you're saying. If you're saying and doing the same thing, that works out good. But if you're saying one thing and doing something else, you're in for a very interesting surprise. Because if you're not paying attention to your picture, and so you're not paying attention to how you're setting up your future.
Thanks for tuning into Heirs TV. The completion of this video or entire audio can be accessed at our website at www.heirscc.org or on Heirs CCC channel, YouTube, and Heirs Radio via SoundCloud and iTunes. Donations can be given at our website. Thank you. Remember, at Heirs, we believe we're just what you prayed for.